you're setting up your suspension, one thing that a lot of riders get confused about is the rebound setting. Now what the rebound refers to is how quickly the fork returns to the normal position after it's been compressed. So you hit a bump, and is the fork going to spring back, or is it going to come back slowly and controlled? So a lot of forks have got this rebound adjustment here. So we've got the hair, which is the fast setting. This is going to give you a much faster rebound spring. So when you hit a bump, the fork's going to spring back really quickly. Then you've got the tortoise setting, which is the slow setting. So that's going to set your rebound so that the fork returns much more slowly to the original position after you've hit a bump. Some riders prefer it to be pretty slow. Most of the time they don't like that spring feeling that you'd get from a fast setting. But basically, play around with the setting, get it somewhere where you feel like it's absorbing the bump, and before the next bump hits, it's ready to take that bump. So you don't want it so slow that it's not ready to take the next hit, and you don't want it so fast that it feels like a pogo stick just springing at you all the time. A lot of riders wonder whether there's a right or wrong way to put tyres on your wheels. And basically, yeah, with most tyre patterns there is a directional way that you want to fit the tyre. You can see on this one quite an obvious little scoop in the tread. And most of the time when you look at a tyre, there'll be an arrow pointing one direction. When you look at the tread and squint a little bit, you'll see kind of arrow shape. So what you want, when it's a front tyre, you want the arrow pointing forward. The reason for that, if you imagine this tyre's rolling forward and I'm starting to apply the brakes, the tread is kind of like a scoop, and that scoop is acting to help me get more traction for braking. If it's a rear tyre, you want the arrow pointing backwards, so that as the tyre's being driven forward and you're trying to get some grip, the scoop is actually acting in your favour, giving you a lot more grip and a lot more traction, particularly important when you're climbing. So remember, look for the arrow in the tyre tread, and arrow pointing forward for the front tyre, arrow pointing backwards for the rear tyre.
So it may look like the south of France today, but I can assure you it's -2 out here. It's absolutely freezing. Brings me on to a bit of the kit that I wear. If you're going out and doing some extreme riding, some downhill or free riding, then I can't recommend enough that you wear the right equipment. Today I've worn like a full motocross kit. It's got padding. I've got padding underneath in the elbows and on the shoulders. I've also got padding on the knees. Again, on days like this, it only helps keep you warm as well as keep you nice and safe out there on the trails. Also, a full face helmet, protect the important stuff up there. And also some good gloves and goggles to keep your hands nice and protected when you crash and slide over this icy ground, and to keep any rocks or bugs out of your eyes as you're riding down the trail. So when conditions like this, it's nice and cold and frozen out there, you can even set your bike up to give yourself a better, more fun day out on the bike. Today I've used a Maxxis 2.5 width. There's a nice fat downhill tyre, will give you plenty of grip out there, keep you nice and safe on the trail. Also, because the ground is so frosty, it's nice and hard, what I do in my suspension, both the rear shock and the front fork, is to actually slow the rebound down slightly. This is because the ground is so hard, as the bike's hitting all the bumps, you don't want to be bucked around like you're on a bucking bronco, you know, you just want to be having a nice smooth travel down the trail. So with the harder ground, always slow your rebound down slightly. I guarantee it'll be a better ride.
You've got a couple of different valve types. The fat one here is called a Schrader. The little skinny one is called a Presta. And sometimes people wonder, well, what's the difference between the two types of valve? Well, basically the Schrader is a much tougher valve, much harder to bend, to get broken, a little bit heavier. The Presta valve's pretty lightweight. It's got this little bit at the top you got to unscrew before you pump it up. And essentially the types of riding you would use each valve for, basically look at the valve. One's chunky, fat, the other one's slim, lightweight. So if you're a kind of slim, lightweight type of rider doing cross-country trails, all-day endurance rides, this is the type of valve you would go for. If you're doing a lot more downhill, free ride, much more burly type of riding, go for the Schrader valve. It's much less likely to get damaged. Now, one thing to consider is when you're carrying a spare tube for your bike, make sure that the hole in the rim is big enough to take whatever valve you're using. If you've bought a bike and it's got Presta valves fitted already, you may find that when you've got a Schrader as a spare tube and you're trying to fit it out in the trail, the Schrader's not going to fit through the hole. So make sure you check that before you get a spare tube. So there you go, you got your Schrader for the chunky riding, you got your Presta for the light and delicate riding.
The thing with jumping is to be really confident in your own ability. Always start small and build up to bigger jumps as you go. The main thing is to be really focused and confident in your own mind that you can actually make the distance that you're going to jump. On this particular jump, from the side profile, you can actually see a nice arc. If you do it with your hand at the side, you can see where the wheel path should really be going. From the takeoff of the jump, you really need to be focusing on the landing and really confident that you're going to make that distance with the speed you've had on the running. So just in the air, just stay relaxed on the bike, pinpoint your landing and aim for that with the bike, and just try and control its flight path and land perfectly on the downside and ride away clean. So when you feel you've mastered the art of jumping, just add a little bit of style.